my name's Jed Jaggard and I'm going to be talking about how a knight would get dressed for battle in the late 15th century. As you can see, we're in the very nice surroundings of my campaign tent. We've got the four-post bed along with other accoutrements if I was a very posh nobleman from the time. Now, when you were going on campaign for war, everything would be placed into chests, a bit like this one down here, and then that would be loaded onto wagons and taken to wherever it is there was fighting, or indeed if you were a tournament fighter, to wherever the tournament was. This armour here is very much fighting armour. It's designed to be as flexible as possible. There's plenty of movement in it, and it consists of lots and lots of different pieces. Now, as a nobleman, I would not be expected to be getting dressed myself. I would have a squire to help me put that on, and we'll meet him a little bit later on. In terms of what I'm wearing though, I have a hat called a chaperon, which is gradually going out of fashion by the late 15th century, but it's still quite popular amongst noblemen. I have my long tunic, belt with a pouch as there are no pockets. I have got an eating knife. I also have riding boots as well, because obviously I would be on horseback rather than walking. I wouldn't necessarily be wearing those once I'm in battle though. So we'll have a look at the different components first of all, and then we'll get dressed for battle.
So let's have a look at the components that make up the armour. What we're going to do is we're going to start at the bottom and work up. So the very bottom parts here on this armour are the greaves. These are hinged, okay, and give you full covering around the back. Now the way that they hold up is with a peg at the front and a loop at the back, and this corresponds to the legs here. So this bottom loop would go through, this bottom strap would go through the loop on there, and then of course we've got the hole for the peg at the front. So this part of the legs here, this is called the cuisse, and this part here is called the pollane, and this is articulated for movement. If we have a look, you can see here how the rivets allow you to bend all the way round. Now this obviously makes this quite a weak part of the armour. One of the areas that a knight would go for is to smash these rivets so that the whole thing will either fall to bits or it will lock up so he can't move. This part here is to stop a weapon getting in behind the back of the leg. If there's no protection there, then it could rip open the hamstring, and that means obviously you can't move at all. So that's the top part of the legs, and then over the top part, okay, covering those all essential areas, is a chainmail skirt. Now if you look closely here, you can see how this is riveted together, so it's very, very strong and will keep its strength when anything comes in. A direct hit from a bodkin arrow, that's a sharp point, basically like a needle, will go through that and break it open. So stab's not wonderfully good against, but sword cuts coming down, very, very protective. Okay, let's move on to the upper part of the body. So the first thing that will go on the top of the armour is this. This is called an arming jack. The reason being is that all of the armour then attaches to this, or some of the armour attaches to this, in order for it to hold itself up. So it's thickly padded. That obviously makes the armour more comfortable, but as well it helps to absorb the blows. If you're wearing armour and a sword cut comes in, you're not going to get cut, but you could still get very, very badly bruised. So this helps to alleviate that. I mentioned it attaches the armour to it here. You can see these laces here, these are known as points. These top ones hold the shoulder protection, these bottom ones hold up the top of the arms, and then from there as well we've got these two discs. They look a bit like upside down umbrellas. These are called bessigues, and the idea with this is when you lift your arm up, they swing underneath the armpit to prevent a direct thrust from coming in, because if a spike's coming in, as we said with the mail skirt, it's going to go through this and into you. So these bits here, these bits of chainmail on either side, these are called voiders. Now basically these protect you where plate armour can't, okay? So under the armpit, right there, and obviously the bessigue to go over the top to protect you. So the mail skirt that's on the bottom, that would go around over the top of this, okay? So that's the base layer for the top part. Let's have a look what else goes on next. Now, before my back and breastplate goes on, I have this part here, again made out of mail. This is called a standard. This goes around my neck, but under the breastplate. The reason being, this gives you a second layer of protection around the neck. So there is a top layer called a bever, which we'll have a look at in a minute, and if anything went under the bever, this would still be there to give some protection to the neck. You notice these holes here on either side, they actually go over my shoulders. That allows me access to the points on top, so I can attach the rest of the arms. So once that's on, and I've got the mail skirt and the arming jack, it's then time for the top layer, the cuirass. So the main body of armour is actually made up in 4 separate parts. This part here is the chest plate. This bit here is called the placard, and basically this gives reinforcement to the stomach, because obviously it's soft and squidgy, whereas we've got our rib cage up here, so that gives us a bit of extra protection. To allow us to bend in the middle, just below that, we have something called the fold. So these are different pieces of metal. So different pieces of metal in a certain area that are riveted are known as lames. So these lames together make up the fold, and as you can see, they concertina up to allow you to bend in the middle. And attached to those, by these straps on either side, we have things called tassets. These give extra protection to the thigh. If I just move that there a little bit, you can see it a bit easier. They give extra protection to the thigh and obviously go over the male skirt. This buckle here, okay, on the bottom of the bever, which protects the neck, there is a strap, and that corresponds to this here. So when I get dressed for battle, this is the next thing that would go on. So let's have a look at the final components that would go on. First of all, we've got the arms. Now the arms are made up in 3 parts here, and unlike the legs, these are held together with points rather than held together with rivets. So what we've got is we've got the ram brace, which is the rear part, the van brace at the front, and then the couter, which is the elbow, and that obviously articulates. You can see the straps on the inside there to be able to strap it to you, and obviously the holes there correspond to the points on the arming jack. So they go on. Once they've gone on, we then have the shoulder protection. Now there's different types of shoulder protection. I wear something called spolders, which date back to the early 15th century. These go on again with tabs at the top and a strap, and they obviously, as you can see, articulate really well to give you lots of movement in the top of the arms. Once they're on, I next normally put on my bever. Okay, now with the bever here, you can see the strap that would go onto the cuirass there. I've got a little button here that allows me to drop the front of it down so I can breathe easier and see better. Bever comes from a French word meaning to dribble, because that's what happens once you're in this, and obviously you're breathing out and it condenses into there. So we've got this one here, okay, and then once that's up, I would normally then have my gauntlets. Now, my gauntlets are in a slightly different style to the rest of the armour. These are in the Gothic style. You can normally tell Gothic style by the fluting here. But if you look at these gauntlets, you've got incredible movement. So we can move our wrist here, we can bend our hand all the way back. Okay, we can bend it forward. These parts here across the knuckles, these are called Gatlings. These are really good for hitting people as well. And these would take a very good blow, as indeed would all the armour. So a knight by this stage wouldn't need a shield. He is wearing his shield, basically. Okay, right, let's have a quick look at the helmet. So a helmet comes in 2 parts, if you like, really. The first is the inner cap, which is called a coif. This acts in just the same way as the army jack, padding to make it more comfortable, to absorb some of the blows, okay, but also to make it fit better. So that would go on first, and then you would have your helmet. Now, in this case, it's a visored salet. So that can drop down. Okay, you can't see much out of it like that. You'd probably only wear it down if you were on horseback. When you were going into the fight, you'd have it up slightly so you can actually see what's going on around you, to be able to use your peripheral vision, see if any blows were coming in.
So looking a little less knightly now, obviously the fancy bits have come off, and I'm now getting ready to get dressed for battle. So just a simple linen shirt, I've got my hose on, and I've also got different boots on now because I'm not riding. I would be a soldier that would be fighting on foot. So there are different types of soldiers that would be wearing armour. You get mercenaries, you get men-at-arms, which have the sort of wealth and status of a knight, but are not necessarily a knight. They might be quite powerful landowners. And then you get low-status knights as well. This sort of armour, with its condition, there's lots of dents in it and things like that. It's a little bit rusty here and there. This would probably be for a man-at-arms or a very low-status knight. So not affording too much, but enough to equip themselves handsomely for battle. Yes, so my squire, whose name is James, he is going to come in and give me a hand. Obviously reasonably well dressed. I don't just employ anybody, you know, absolutely. And yeah, James is going to help me get dressed for battle. So hopefully we're going to be ready to fight very shortly. we go. This is what a fully armoured knight would be looking like. Now, every knight has ever so slightly different armour. This is sort of your tailored suit from Savile Row rather than an off-the-peg job from Marks and Spencer's or something like that. This would be absolutely tailored to you. And so every knight looks ever so slightly different, but also every knight gets dressed in a slightly different way. So what you've just seen is the way that I would expect my squire to put on my armour, because that's how it's designed for. You can see if I lift up, we've got the best of views that are moving in the right place. I've got full movement, I can bend, I can stretch, I can lift up. Okay, so I am quite a formidable force. Now, you'll notice that I don't have a shield. I don't need a shield, this is everything. Just bring James back in a second. James, you want to grab the larger of the swords down there. Now, instead of holding it point towards me, if you turn it round and use that bit, if you just want to hit me in the chest, okay, and again, and a bit harder, okay, one, it's deflecting it away, but two, I can't feel anything. There's quite a gap between the actual inside of the armour and me anyway, so it's really, really good. If I can take the sword, please. Thank you very much. Now, in battle, if you're waving a long sword like this, at your enemy. One, there's lots of people standing around you. You are likely to injure them. The second thing as well is you don't have the space to be able to do that. So it's very, very tricky. And if you hit a knight in armour with a blade like this, you're not going to do anything. A lot of the time, swords in battle are used like this. And what you're trying to do with the thinner point is go for the gaps or the chinks in my armour. So for example, the armpits, that was a very, very common place. And you're trying to drive in, bring the top of the sword, the pommel down onto someone's head, or smash it up into their chin and drive them backwards. Get the hilt of the sword underneath someone's legs and pull them over, or around the back of the neck and pull them down. And really, it's only sort of the top 6 to 8 inches of the blade that would be sharp, because the rest of it doesn't need to be. You are just fighting away. The other thing as well is by fighting like this, you can defend yourself very easily and wait for the moment to stab in. You're not actually using a lot of energy. The only energy that you're using really is in your left arm, okay? And that's about it. Now, to get into some particularly nasty ways of dying, not only would I be carrying a sword, I would also have a dagger as well. James, could you pass me my Rondel Dagger, please? Thank you very much. Grab hold of that for me. So, nasty little dagger this is. It's a triangular shaped blade, and it gets wider as it gets ever closer to the hilt. So if I'm going into chainmail, what it would do is it would basically break the links open even though they're riveted together. And if it doesn't go in first time, that's why it's got a flat pommel. So you can keep hitting it until it does, okay? If I've got my visor down, obviously the other point would be in through there, which would be very, very nasty. I possibly wouldn't be wearing a scabbard for my sword. It would flap about and possibly get in the way. I might be if I was on horseback. James would be with me on the battlefield. He would be slightly further away. Wearing all of this armour is, rough weight is about 5 stone. So if you're fighting for probably 5 to 10 minutes, and then you'd move back through the battle line to take on some refreshment, which is what my squire would be for, but also he might give me a different weapon then to carry into battle. I would be refreshed and would be able to be very, very effective. The problem though, of course, at the minute is you have no idea whose side I'm on, because everyone wearing vaguely shiny metal armour all looks exactly the same. So James, if I could just bring you back in a second, let me just give you that dagger. The final thing that would go on a knight is something called a livery coat. Now this is like your football team wearing the various different colours. In this case I've got black and red, and this literally just goes over the armour and then is belted round the waist. Okay, so now we've finished. As you can see over the top, I now have my livery coat, so everybody can see who I am on the battlefield. I still have the same amount of movement, and I'm ready for a fight. So thank you very, very much for watching. I hope you found it informative. A big thank you to my squire James here for getting me all dressed for battle. Hope to see you soon.